Hello there, welcome to Debbie Rose online training. Today we'll be learning how to cut the 6 pieces blouse with cold shoulder sleeves. So you see, I'll be using a v-neck for my blouse. Then my cold shoulder is a combination of the basic straight sleeve and then just the flare edge. It's going to have a flare at the edge, and then it's going to be a princess dart bustier with the 6 pieces flare there. So each panel we have the flare. So the measurement for this tutorial, bust 38, under bust and all. Now to calculate our cold shoulder sleeve, you will have to measure your round shoulder measurements. That's the circumference round the shoulder. Look at me. You take your circumference round the shoulder like this. Remember, the edge of your tape rule will meet the longer part of the tape rule. So whatever you get there is what you record as your circumference measurement. So this is 43 for my round shoulder. Now you measure the upper bust circumference. That's the round upper bust. You take it round under your armpits, and then, and then you get the measurement for the round upper bust. That is there, 37. So to get the circumference of the edge of our shoulder, you subtract 37 from 43. That will give you 6 inches. Now we'll be using ½ inch to sew the shoulders to the bodice front and the back. So ½ inch in front, ½ inch at the back is 1 inch. So you're adding 1 inch seam allowance to the 6 inches here. So we'll go to the brown paper. We'll be doing this as a pattern drafting method. So you do this on brown paper before we place our pattern on the fabric to cut. So I'll begin this tutorial with the back measurement. So you can see I've measured 2 inches for my zipper allowance, and I'll be doing the center back panel first. This will make it easier for me to cut the bustier on the front block. So you get your vertical measurements. For this tutorial, the shoulder to bust is 10 inches. Remember to add half for the joining of the shoulder. Shoulder to under bust is 13. You add half, you get 13.5. Shoulder to waist is 17 plus half. Then the shoulder to the blouse length is 23 inches. Then you add 1.5 inches seam allowance because we'll be using it to turn the edge of our blouse. Okay, now you're going to get the armhole length. The armhole circumference is 17 inches. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. You mark 8.5 there. And then now you're going to get your back shoulder measurement. So shoulder measurement is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. You put 7 there. Remember that this is a princess dart bustier, and we need an extension in order to cater for the curve that we'll be cutting away. So you add 1 inch to your shoulder measurement. That gives me 8 inches. On the armhole length, you measure 8 inches there too, like this. And then you connect your points together with the ruler, like this. So you use your armhole curve, your French curve, to get your curve there. Okay. Now you're going to divide the armhole length by 2. 8.5 divided by 2 will give you 4 1/4, like this. And then we'll get our bust span. The bust span is your nipple to nipple measurement. For this one is 7.5. The nipple to nipple measurement is 7.5. Now divide 7.5 by 2 gives you 3 3/4. That's 3, and then 3 7.5, 3.75. So that's 3 3/4, and then you had ½ inch there. So you're going to get whatever it is on the bust straight down. That's what you're going to get straight down. So 4.75 1/4, 4 1/4, that's 4.25. We're going to get it on the under bust circumference and on the waist, 4.15. So I'll be connecting those points together again, like so. Then you connect the bust to the armhole, like this, and then you know the extension is going there. So this is how we're going to do it. So because of the princess dart, it reduces the length, so that's why we did the extension here. So you're going to curve it like this, and then you let this meet here. Just follow the sketch I'm doing and you won't go wrong. So you do this like this, and then you create your curve at the sharp end. Make sure it's curvy. Okay, now on the waist, remember that this is a 6 pieces blouse. The base of the blouse, you'll be adding 5 inches to the panel on the base. So whatever you have here is 4 1/4. You mark it at the base, 4 1/4, and then you're adding 5 inches to the panel measurement. So there you are going to slant it down like this. Now you can decide that you don't want your pieces to begin at the waist. So what do? You measure 2 inches or about 1.5 inches upward like this, and then you can connect your flare or your panel from that point downward. So you can do it this way, or if you want a perfect fit, I think it's better to measure 1.5 inches upwards and then you connect it like this. That's the beauty of using patterns. You can adjust your pattern wherever you see that you need to make alterations. But if you're doing this directly on the fabric, once you make this error and you cut it out, there's no remedy. This has been wasted. So that's the beauty of cutting pattern before placing on fabric. So now you can see I can do my alterations and I don't have issues. So I'm going to cut this out as the center back for the back panel, and then I'll show you what next. Okay, so for the side pattern, you're going to mark 5 inches extension to the left side. You mark 5 inches extension, and then you place the center of the back against the measurement. You can see I've marked my vertical measurements. So you're going to let the measurement tally. So from the 5 inch you marked, you're going to point it like that. Okay, from here. So you draw out this shape. You draw out this shape for the side. Let me use the ruler. You draw out that shape like this. So when you get to this point, the half length point, instead of drawing the shape this way, it goes outside. It comes out like this. It comes out like this. This is how it comes out. Okay, and now we'll be getting our full circumference measurements now. So you can also use the piece that we cut before to balance up your armhole measurements this way. But first of all, let's get our circumference measurement. Our circumference measurement for the bust is 38 inches. 38 divided by 4. Now I've folded the zipper allowance there, so that I'll begin my measurement directly from the edge, So 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. 9.5 plus 2 inches seam allowance. 2 inches seam allowance. You can even use 2.5 since we are turning it with the lining. And then the dart is going to run from armhole straight down. So 2.5 inches will be appropriate. Then under bust measurement is 31. 31 divided by, you see, it's at the edge, it's on that line. Make sure it doesn't move. You can pin it down. 31 divided by 4. You begin your measurement from the edge. 31 divided by 4 is 7 3/4 here. Then you add 2.5 inches seam allowance like this. Now on the waist to the edge, okay? So we just connect that to the half length where we're going to draw out the flare. Okay, so let's connect our points like this, like this. So the measurement we have here now is what you put on the, okay, the half length. It's here. So now we're going to mark the same measurement we have here, and then you put 5 inches extension for the panel, 5 inches extension. So we're going to connect this to the M line. That's that, like this. Okay, so now for the armhole, I'm going to be taking the previous points that I cut away, and then I'll be using that to connect. Just follow the shape that you have, like this. To make it easier for me, let me even cut that out. And then use that in shaping it. Like this. So you connect this point down here. So you can decide to use your armhole curve here, your French curve, just to get a curve around there, so you won't have contours. Okay, so you're just curving like this, like that. So this is for our side piece. You can see there's a flare here and there's another flare here. So this is we're going to cut 2 sides for our front, for the back, sorry, 2 sides for the back. Thank you. Okay, now I've used my pattern in cutting the back piece. You can see the panel, you can see the panel. So by the time I'm sewing, this comes here, and then this will be sewn here. So we're going to have this panel, you know, coming out as a flare. 6 pieces. So we'll use this center now to cut for the back. Sorry, the center back, we'll use it in cutting the front bustier. So before you do that, you're going to pin your zipper allowance. Remember, 2 inches. You pin it like this, so that we can begin our measurement from the edge for the center of the front panel. Okay, I've pinned the zipper allowance at the back of the center. That's the center back panel. So I folded my fabric into 2 now. I want to cut the center front panel. So I'll be putting the edge of that back that I've pinned to the edge of the fabric folded, and then you mark out the point here, and then you cut. So you extend, you know, the shoulder to bust, you mark it here, plus ½ inch, that's 10.5. Shoulder to under bust, 13 plus half, 13.5. Then shoulder to the half length, you mark it there. So now at the under bust, you're going to mark ½ inch from that edge, ½ inch here, and then ½ inch here. So you're going to connect. You're going to connect your points like this, ½ inch, ½ inch, and then ½ inch. You reduce that by ½ inch. But at the armhole, you're going to mark 1 inch. 1 inch. So you connect that point into the bust, to the bust side, like this. So we're going to cut that out. So we're already shaping out our bustier. Okay, shaping out our bustier. You're going to connect that as a slant to the bust. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. You connect your under bust as a slant to the bust. Okay, you slant it to the bust because you're not removing ½ inch from the bust line. You're connecting it. So we'll cut the side pattern for the side for the front. So I've now taken the side pattern for the back. I've put it on my fabric unfold. Now I've marked the exact shape for the front side. Now the front side we have the bustier cut. So you would use your center, center piece to check. Look at the way I'm placing it there. To check your shoulder to bust, you mark it there. Shoulder to under bust, you mark it. Shoulder to half length, you mark it like this. Okay, so once you've gotten out the shape, you can remove that. This is the actual shape, the one in front here, the actual shape like this. So on the under bust, you measure 1.5 to the side, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, all the way down to the flare, 1.5 inches. And then to the, and then at the armhole, you measure 1 inch like this, 1 inch. So you connect that armhole measurement towards the bust side here, and then you connect your bust to the under busts in a slant. Remember, we're removing the 1.5 inches at the under bust. We're not removing anything from the bust. So like this, and then to the half length, and then to the length there. So I'm going to be cutting out my bustier shape. Like this. So remember, this is our curve here. Like this. Okay, so now because we removed 1.5 inches here, and then we removed ½ inch at the center, so at your side you'll be adding that 2 inches. You'll be adding those 2 inches to the seam allowance. That's what is here, 2 inches to the seam allowance, because that is what we removed at the bustier. So you just return it to the side. If you have excess at the end of your sewing, you can trim it out. So you're going to cut your lining the same shape. Just place what you cut out on lining. You cut it as pieces, but you reduce the lining by 1 inch so that you join it together. So for my sleeve, cold shoulder sleeve, I'll first get the basic sleeve. Mine is 11 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance. Remember, I'll be joining the flare to it. So now you're going to measure 3 inches down like this. Remember that we said from the calculation earlier, remember we said that the upper bust circumference will be subtracted from the round shoulder circumference, and then we got 6 inches plus 1, we have 7 inches seam allowed. We have 7 inches for that place. So at the point I marked 3 inches, you're going to mark the 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So you mark 3.5 here, you see, and then you slant your shoulder like this. You slant it. So this part goes to the armhole, while this part will be our cold shoulder. So then you can cut the sleeve. So you can use your basic pattern to get the cold shoulder. Okay, so now my sleeve circumference, that's the circumference of my sleeve here, is 10.5. 10.5. I want it a bit loose, depends on you. You can make yours tighter or free at 10.5. So I want to get the radius of my flare. Look at the radius here of my flare here, the radius. So I'll be dividing by 6.28 because my flare will have no joining. If it's going to have a joining, you divide by 3.14. But this one is a full flare without joining, without zipper allowance. Okay, so division, you get 1.7 inches. Now the length of flare is 6 inches, the length. So you add 1 inch to the flare length, it gives you 7. Now because we want to know the amount of fabric to fold so that we don't waste fabric, you're going to say the radius, which is 1.7 inches plus 7 inches, the length of flare plus the seam allowance, that is equal to 8.7. So that will be at the amount of fabric we're going to fold before we cut out the radius of 1.7. So let's go to the fabric. So the amount of fabric to fold is 8.7. You can see that I have just a little allowance here. So at 8.7, you also get the length, 8.7. You can use 8 3/4, that's 8.75. You measure the accurate thing by the time you fold. So at that 8.7, you fold your fabric like this. You fold the fabric like this. And then you're going to, you pin it down. Pin it down like this. So now we'll measure at 8.7 inches round. 8.7 inches, we'll measure that round. Remember, that remains at the apex point. So you just move the edge of your tape rule, while 8.7 remains at the edge, you know, the apex point of the triangle there. Like this. That's for the full length. Now we said we want to remove our radius here. The radius is 1.7. So we have this 1.7. So we're going to cut that out. So this is for first sleeve. So you just place this on the other part of the fabric after folding to cut out the exact shape for the second flare. Thank you. Now we want to sew our 6 pieces blouse. 6 pieces blouse. So you join the fabric of the side to the center, side to the center. You just join it along the cutout, along the princess dart bustier. So now I'm sewing 1/2 inch along the darts, and so when you get to this part with the bustier curve, you manipulate that point. Keep adjusting your bustier curve, you know, like that. At the curves, you just lift up your presser foot, adjust the bustier, and then you put it like this. So now this is what you have. So we're going to sew the second side. So this is the lining. You cut the lining the same shape of the pattern, the 6 pieces. Okay, So I have added soft wadding. This is soft wadding. You gum the shiny parts to the lining, okay, and then I'm going to sew along. I'm going to sew the side to center along the dart point. So now that has been sewn together, so you can see the bustier effect because of the wadding. So now you're going to place the fabric, that's the block of the fabric on it, the right side facing the right side of the lining, like this, and then you're going to sew along the hemline with 1/2 inch. Once that is sewn, then you're going to sew the neckline. You align the neckline, and then you're going to sew 1/2 inch down round. Having sewn that, you're now going to notch. Remember, you're going to cut before the seam line, just before the seam line. You're going to make notches so that this can turn properly to the right side. It will lay properly by the time we turn it to the right side. Okay, so now what you do is you want to top stitch, so you make sure that the seam is under the lining, and then you're going to be top stitching on the lining with a 1/4 inch like this. Make sure the seam is under the lining, and then you'll be top stitching on the lining with a 1/4 inch. So you follow this through the neckline round. So after top stitching, I'm going to turn this out. So now you can see that the bustier is out. See the 6 pieces joining like that, like that. So now we're going to work on the back bodice, and then I'll make sure that I iron the seam line. So you just open up like this, you iron on the seam line before you align it together, and then you iron on the top. Always make sure that you open up your seam and you iron on it, so it makes it easier for the alignment. Then you iron this way. So I'll be ironing my darts to everything and work on it. So for the back bodice, you can see this is the zipper allowance. You're going to sew the side to the center of the back. The same thing you do for the fabric. The same thing. You sew this side to this side. So now we are going to join our neckline with 1/2 inch into the zipper, and then we come down 1/2 inch. But first of all, remember, okay, once you join the neckline first, then you come and you join the hemline to the lining, hemline. Don't work on the zipper allowance yet. Remember that your lining, that we cut the lining shorter than the main fabric. So the essence of that cutting is to be able to turn the edge of the hemline. You turn it like this, and then you sew the zipper allowance on a straight line, 1/2 inch. So you can see the 1/2 inch turning up, and then we're going to sew 1/2 inch down the zipper allowance. So once you've sewn, you can then cut the corner here, and then you make sure you notch. Now you can decide to, we used wadding for the front lining for our bustier to pad it up. You can put air stay or paper stay or soft gum stay on the back bodice to give it some firmness too, but I chose not to use it at all. But you can, if your client is willing to pay more, or you want to have a super perfect fit, you can just add that to the lining for the back. So you can see ironing as you sew makes your finishing very neat. It makes your finishing very neat. So you can see the 1/2 inch has been turned up there, so I don't have to top stitch here. Okay, so now I want to fix my zipper, and then you can see that the zipper runs from top and then here. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to open it up, fold this, you know, it's remaining 1.5 inches, so you're going to be pinning this to the edge of the 1.5 inch all the way down like this. You're pinning like this, you're pinning like this, and then you stop. So once you're done sewing, we're just going to take this aboard this way. I'm going to take that into the neckline at the back, so I'll show you when I'm done. So I fixed the zipper on the back of this. So now you're going to place the front bodice on it, and then you pick the neckline, the shoulders together. So you pick the shoulders together, and then you place fabric to fabric, and then you open up the lining like this, and then you cross it above. Then you sew 1/2 inch, you know, straight down, cross like this. So I'll be sewing 1/2 inch down. So now I've marked the circumference measurements, and so now you can see that there's an extension on the shoulder. So what do? You're going to remark your measurement. You know, we added extra inches to the shoulder because of the princess that we don't want it short, so the extension here made up for the curves at the bustier. So you just mark your armhole measurement from there, you create a curve, and then you bring it up. You know, you just cross-check your measurements like that. You cross-check your measurements, and then you see the edges here are not even. So what you do is you just cut them to be equal. So now you can see I've sewn on the line. So now we want to work on the sleeve. Okay, so now you want to fix the sleeve on the remaining armhole part. So you're going to check with your armhole slant. You check if this will match the bodice, and then you can see that it doesn't match it. So what do? I'm going to be slanting extra to meet it here. So you're going to slant extra to meet it here, or somewhere around here. So you just have to keep checking. It's not like there's a standard, you have to keep checking. Okay, so now I'm going to cut that off. And then I'll sew 1/2 inch into my sleeve. So I've sewn my 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch, and then you turn this out. Turn out the sleeve like this. So you take the main body, that's the bodice, and then you open it up like this. You open up the seam for the side, you open this up, and then you take the sleeve, you open up the armpit points like this too, and you take it from inside to meet each other. Then you pin it down. So I've pinned this round from the opening, okay, round to the other edge. So you're going to be sewing 1/2 inch down. So you just go round under the armpits, and then we're going to stop up here. Look at this. It's not a full sleeve, so we're stopping here. So we'll do that for the second side too. Now that's our princess that bustier 6 pieces blouse with the cold shoulder sleeves. Thanks for watching. So now for the sleeves, you're going to sew the lining to the fabric, right side to right side against right side, and then you sew the top. Remember, it's a cold shoulder sleeve. You sew the top like this, and then you can decide to put your paper stay or soft gum stay here. So you do the same for the second sleeve, and then we take the flare. We're going to be slashing one side of the flare. We'll be slashing one side of the flare. So I've ironed the paper stay, the soft collar stay, sorry, on the edge of my cold shoulder. So you're going to turn it out. Remember, you have sewn 1/2 inch on both sides, lining and fabric, so with 1/2 inch. So when you turn the sleeve out like this, you open up the seam, and then you iron on the seam, then you align it together. You align together. You open up the seam at the sides too, you iron, and then you align together. So you get the midpoint of the sleeve circumference down, and then you get the midpoint of your flare, and you pin the two together. So we're going to be sewing the flare to the sleeve in this line. We're going to be sewing it all the way for 2 sleeves. So now, because my cold shoulder will begin from somewhere around here, so you need to loosen the shoulder point, and then you're going to sew like this, fabric to lining. You're going to sew 1/2 inch to about, from the top there to 4 inches down. You sew 4 inches down into the armhole. You sew 4 inches down. So now I've sewn up to 4 inches, then I added half, because by the time I join my shoulders, it's going to come back to 4 inches, so that's 4.5 inches. And then you're going to notch the end of it, and then you knot this. So you're going to turn it out like this. We've turned it out like this. So we'll do the same thing for the back and the other side too. So now you can see that I've been able to turn the edges of the armhole up to 4.5 inches. So now I want to bring this together. How will I do this? I'll take my hand into the opening, the remaining part of the opening at the armhole. You can do this even before sewing the side. You can do this before sewing, but I've already sewn my side. So you put your hand there, you turn this inside like this, you bring it out, and then you sew together. You align them together, and then you sew 1/2 inch. So now you can see I've turned the upper part of the armhole that way. So now I've sewn my sleeve, I've sewn it this way. I've sewn my sleeve this way, so you're going to be turning to the wrong side like this. This is the off shoulder, the slant, armhole slant. So you take the main bodice, this one, and then you check with the armhole slant. Now you can see that the armhole slant is still small. So what do?